Hey, everybody. Welcome to the TEConnect podcast. I'm John Martin.
And I'm Dean Reverman.
Dean, operating systems, they've kind of come a long way in our lifetimes.
You think so?
Yeah, I mean, we've been around long enough to have seen some of the originals.
Yes.
Some various iterations.
Some very
over the
early
years.
Windows operating systems, yes.
In our personal lives, in our business lives.
Yes. Have you come across Windows 95 in a long time?
I could not tell you the last time.
I was just trying to think of the last time I came across.
I don't know. I'm sure it's one of those things maybe I have and just didn't realize it. You know,
right.
But,
some back office somewhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I was also thinking, we've talked before about my past experience in retail.
Oh, yes.
And,
green screen.
Yeah, the ancient type of operating systems that were running on these old giant clunker IBM. Cash registered computers I used back then.
Yes.
So, all right. Well, obviously, things are a little bit different.
A little bit better.
But what about like the digital signage side of things? You were a digital signage reseller once upon a time. What kind of OS did you typically work with?
See, that's where some of the revolution has happened. We were still using Windows back then. We didn't have any of this nice stuff.
I know it's been some time ago, but it hasn't been that long ago.
Well, it's only been a decade, I guess. But hey.
So there you go.
Things change. That's fast.
Things definitely change. Well, today we're exploring a little bit of that evolution of the operating system. We've got a couple fantastic guests. We've got Google's Brandy with us, as well as HP's David Gosman.
Nice.
So we're going to explain a little bit about that progression, where we are now versus where we've been. They'll explain it much better.
Yes, way better than I can.
We were just like, we remember Windows. That's it. Brandy will talk to us a little more about ChromeOS, which obviously is a big feature that Google has out there.
You talk to all the kids, it's all ChromeOS.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. She'll tell us a little more about how it fits into the digital signage and kiosk realm.
Nice.
She'll talk a little bit about the security aspect of the reliability aspect of ChromeOS.
You think that's important?
Well. I think so.
A little bit.
Yeah, I think people typically want things to be secure and reliable these days, especially for a business.
That's right.
And then David will help us fill in some more gaps also on HP and their, how they support ChromeOS and Android.
Nice.
And also help you figure out when you should pick which one potentially is the operating system.
That's
of
a
choice,
good question.
That's not a question. That's something I would have any clue how to answer.
Not at all. Yeah.
So we get the smart people on to do that.
Bingo.
They will also talk in our Value to the VAR about their relationship, how you guys can win some opportunities and go out and sell some solutions with HP and Google working together.
Yeah.
And of course, as always, our What's TEConnecting with Us segment. We got a lot to do in this episode.
Yeah. Oh, we better hop in.
We should. It's time to plug in and get connected.
Welcome to the TEConnect podcast. It's time to get connected.
All right, as I mentioned, we have two fantastic guests with today.
We
First
do.
up, I'll call out Brandy Al. She is the Google Strategic Partner Manager for ChromeOS. Brandy, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being on today. Tell us a little about yourself, maybe kind of your path of what's led you to Google and specifically to ChromeOS, working on that side of things.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, John and Dean. It's really been a journey for me, just learning about ChromeOS in my almost 6 years at Google. I'm just a week shy of my 6-year work anniversary. And this whole time I've been really trying to evangelize ChromeOS with our enterprise customers. Everybody kind of thinks of, ChromeOS as your kid's Chromebook, but there is a lot more to that. And I will say that the same principles of why schools love Chromebooks can also be extended to, retailers, digital signage, and kiosks. So really excited to talk more about that with everybody today. In my day job at Google, what I'm really focused on is just listening to partners, helping them understand, what are the benefits of selling ChromeOS, and also them giving me feedback on what they need to be more successful in growing their Chrome business. So that's my day-to-day and what I do at Google.
Awesome. Nice. And you notice Brandy's, got a little accoutrement going on there on her head. We're recording this the day before Halloween. It's actually coming out, I think, this Thursday of Halloween week. But she's in the spirit today, as she should be. If I thought about it, we should have dressed up.
We should absolutely
like Tweedledee and Tweedledum or something like that. We could have done something here. We just didn't plan far enough ahead of time.
Clearly,
Our next guest is David Gosman. He is the HP Global Retail Strategist, which means he knows a thing or two
a little bit
about the world of retail. David, welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and your day-to-day life at HP.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. So first off, I want to say I feel sorely underdressed thanks to Brandy.
That's right. We all do.
I'm big into Halloween. Didn't come ready for it. What can I say? they're number one right there. But I guess you could say my journey actually started with DOS, and because it's becoming hard to find developers for that operating system, finally had the need to innovate. But no, really. So I actually I started with computers as a kid, and I started writing little silly programs in BASIC on DOS, right? So that's going way back. And actually did have one of the first commercially ready products for point of sale on Windows 3.1 using Visual Basic way back in the day. So definitely a long history with operating systems, and there's so many great things that were back then, but the world has advanced so much. For me, my journey from point of sale has continued within retail technology and point of sale. And I am part of HP's retail and industry solutions business. So for those that might not know that HP makes more than great printers and laptops and desktops and all that, we do make hardware just for retail stores, actually number one market share for retail stores and restaurants globally. BlueStar is a great partner of ours, as is Google as well. So my role is kind of leading that forward-thinking industry strategy, and that partnership with Google and working together with Brandy and other colleagues within that group has really kind of helped us innovate and bring these kind of additional platforms into the world as well. So it's funny. We love talking about technology and innovative technology, but the reality is, if you don't have that core operating system secured and managed, all the stuff you want to throw on top of it might not work, right? So it's really a very important piece of the puzzle.
There you go. Love it. And I don't think I didn't notice the little mention there of how you were just coding in your free time as a child. You know, like it's
a little coding on the side,
just like all kids do. You know, just, they eat their marshmallow laden cereal, do a little coding. You know, why not?
It was before it was cool.
So, there you go.
Oh man,
that's true. We have all these STEM initiatives these days. It is
right.
cool to code now, but once upon a time that wasn't so much, unfortunately.
Yeah, right.
Well, again, we appreciate having you both on the show. I think we're gonna have a great conversation here. So let's dig into this. We wanted to talk about this idea of like the OS architecture and where we've been, kind of where we're going. And David, you've kind of hinted that a little bit, obviously, of your past. You've had a lot of experience in this realm. So talk to us a little bit about that progression of OS, especially as it pertains maybe to retailers, hospitality, the business world, let's say over the last decade or so, and why you think that like current market forces, trends, modern hardware like HP is, putting out there, why it's driving new needs for stores and restaurants to adopt new and different OSs.
Yeah, it's kind of it's an interesting topic, because if you go, back in the day, there was obviously, like I said, I had a Windows application for point of sale. So much software was written, for DOS and then Windows over many years, and even some for Linux. And that was kind of just the way things were for a very long time. And there's certainly many good reasons for that. But the needs of retail technology have not, kind of stayed stagnant for quite a while, right? There was a lot of changes in how stores and restaurants operated, but they didn't necessarily innovate and move their technology along fast enough. So as you started to see a lot of progression into retailers moving into the online world, that can be moving their own business into online, or also competing with the likes of Amazon and so many other companies out there that got into online e-commerce and all that. Retail stores and restaurants really have, come to a realization that they need to really change how the physical space in their stores is used, right? So they have to make them more attractive. They have to make them more welcoming and fun, so that you're not just going to the website to find the lowest price. You're actually going in and enjoying an experience inside of a store. Same applies for restaurants, as more and more food gets delivered through these third-party platforms. So as they try to really evolve what happens inside of the store and how to make it more fun, interesting, perhaps more efficient, and operate better for the better customer experience, technology has really what's been called to the plate to really help out with a lot of that, right? Because there's only so much you can do with actually changing what the people do in the store. That certainly has a huge factor, but enabling them to do a lot more to compete in those factors is huge. So a lot of new customer facing experiences being installed. When you go into a lot of stores and restaurants now, you see a ton of digital signage. It's really not just static, like, hey, here's a picture on a wall. A lot of it's becoming interactive, where you as a customer can wave in front of the camera, possibly hold products up. You can touch screens and kind of navigate through inventory and see a lot of deeper information about it. There's so much technology being used in all those different ways, and because of that, that has really driven a huge change in what types of devices are installed in the store, right? Because it used to be just point of sale was a system on top of a counter. Now it's screens of different sizes everywhere. All these different peripherals interact with it. So you have so many more technology touch points all around the operation. And that also calls into play something else. And this is where you had a big evolution of operating systems as well. A lot of the technology that happened in stores was either a server that was in a back room, or you had systems that were controlled by store staff in the front of house. Now you have devices being used by customers, and they're being used by guests, by employees, by pretty much everybody that might walk into there. Some of them are directly using it, and some of that technology is just watching what's going on and adapting to the situation using AI and computer vision and all these technologies. So you have technology doing a lot more. And that means that one, the technology has to be really attractive and approachable. You don't want those old dim screens that are kind of ugly looking and don't respond to touch very well. You want screens that are a lot brighter and more welcoming and act more like your cell phone that you're used to. In addition to that, this stuff has to just work. I think, gone are the days where customers will accept a blue screen being kind of present on a screen and showing a crashed user experience. You had more tolerance to that in the past. That tolerance doesn't exist anymore. Customers expect technology enabling experiences that works well, and you get that one shot with that customer. If it doesn't work well, they might be gone. So a lot has changed. The operating systems that run on those, you need the ability to manage things more easily. It has to be hyper secure in this day of everything being connected. There's so much that has changed in that whole factor right there. We keep a very strong pulse on it. And that very much led to working more closely with Google and both their operating systems to make sure that we were ahead of the curve in bringing that to market.
Yeah, definitely.
Dave, let's stay on the edge real quick. I'm glad you brought that up because, that's obviously the transformation that everybody's talking about right now. When you start talking about AI or machine, vision and its usage and in the many manifestations that's starting to come out and, having some continuity across your devices and you did a good job, right? There's now many different types of devices. It's not just the media player on the digital signage, but now the kiosks is being asked to do analytics and things of that nature. We're pulling more and more of the compute back out of the cloud and putting it on the edge. And when we do that, obviously there needs to be a continuity. So dive a little deeper there on the edge and what you're seeing on the edge and the importance of having some maybe OS continuity. Is that what you're seeing? Is that why people are starting to migrate, to an operating system like a Chrome or something like that, where there's that continuity is coming into play?
Yeah, it's definitely a part of it. I think one of the primary reasons that we do see is just the ability for people to manage their devices a lot easier. Heavier operating systems take a lot more effort to manage, going anywhere from the licensing to the security, to what applications are running on there, what peripherals are connected. And there's a huge need to lock down the machines to really do just what they need them to do and not more. For us, we kind of take in a way an OS agnostic approach in that we first sit down with our customers and we talk about what are you trying to accomplish inside of your. And sometimes that might drive a need for a lot of on-site, resident computing that happens there, maybe a bit more of an edge model. A lot of times it's not necessarily calculating a lot of stuff. It's more about having the right content displayed on the device. And maybe it's not a heavy amount of data going back and forth. And that can really play much more friendly in cloud-based environment. And you can also have the option to mix and match. But, for us, it's not like a one size fits all in every scenario. It's choosing the right technology for what you're trying to accomplish. I think edge computing has a huge benefit, but edge computing is often kind of calculating a lot of that data in the background. You still have all those devices that people are touching that really are just getting small amounts and packets of data that are fed to them. And that's where a cloud-based architecture could be a lot better for them. So again, it really depends on what you're doing and choosing the right thing, and we help people through those discussions. But it's important to really understand that whole environment and have the right options available.
Bingo. I think solutions integrators today need to understand the mix, right? It can be a mix. It is going to be a mix of those things, but it's really, the world's becoming much more complicated. Whereas maybe 15, 20 years ago, Dave, it was all on-prem, right? And the compute was happening there, on the point of sale system or the server that was in the back of the room. But now the demands of AI, ML, and all these litany of things that we're bringing to the table to make retail and hospitality modernization happen. Well, it takes a little bit of a blended approach to it.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I think also having that connectivity real time helps you adapt your business faster. We have, for example, I was meeting with a customer recently. They change their prices several times per day. So whenever they're kind of sifting the web for competition, they're able to adjust the prices in store, and their customers have this confidence that we're always getting the best price when we work with you. So for them, that cloud connectivity and the rapid response, kind of an in-store only model might be part of the solution for them, but they need to have that live connectivity all throughout the day to deliver that low price promise to their customers.
Pricing at by the hour.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
exactly. Yeah, that's. I mean, awesome when you can do that, but also kind of nutty that you can do that too.
Yeah.
But David, I also appreciated you mentioned the idea of like the dynamic screens too, and just the idea of a screen that attracts our attention. I mean, again, I've talked about this before. Like we're all ingrained to look at screens. We're slaves to the screens that we carry in our pockets all the time anyway, and we're ingrained to to look for them. And when we see one, we stop, we pay attention. It's more noticeable than obviously than a classic sign would have been. But again, those screens have to look good. They have to look nice. There has to be they got to be moving quickly and have a great presentation, a great feel to them. And again, I think that's a big part of this, I think, too, where people don't think about the idea that, the old school screens that may be out there that, sure, maybe you can have something on an old system that is just, very basic data, very basic information. But some of the, what these newer operating systems allow for is such dynamic and beautiful colors and images. And, when paired up with, great hardware like HP's, obviously, that, you put it all together and it's just a more mesmerizing experience that draws attention and gets people when they walk into a store, restaurant, whatever it is, to stop and pay attention, which is ultimately the goal of these things. Stop, pay attention, interact, and then hopefully buy something at the end of the day too. So, Brandy, I want you to kind of, dive in a little bit further, maybe kind of, give your insight here to that initial question too about, the trends and the market forces that have led us to looking at, new and not the standard old OS and standard operating systems. Maybe from a Google point of view of like what you guys saw out there in the market that led you that way. And then let's, let's use that to kind of dive into our next question too, which obviously is that Chrome is very well known. A lot of us use it as a browser. It's my favorite browser. I've been using it for a very long time. You mentioned the Chromebooks at the top of the show and the OS there.
Lovingly called Chromies, by the way, by all the kids.
My son just started kindergarten. He loves Technology Day because he gets to play on his Chromie.
I mean, as a marketer, I love the fact that they've already branded like a whole category of compute. Yes,
exactly.
Anyway,
so it's well known. It's it's you have a well known brand and name in the field. So maybe as part of that explanation of why the market forces have led you where you are to take that Chrome OS experience and move it into the business side, and then tell us about maybe where the big benefits and the selling points of Chrome OS for digital signage and kiosks kick in.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it might help to go to the beginning, right? Like the genesis of Chrome. And if you rewind back 15 years, Chrome browser started in 2008. And it, due to the speediness of it and the responsiveness and just the intelligence of that user experience, quickly became a popular choice where now, overwhelmingly so, Chrome browser is still the more preferred out of all the options there. And so, Google had the browser in 2008. Then smart people who are smarter than me at Google started thinking, well, what more can we do with the browser? And, web is the future. How can we augment that experience and, go beyond the browser? And so that's really how ChromeOS was born in 2011. That was when the first Chromebook came out. And I think at that time it was just this lightweight Chrome device manufactured by Samsung. And it really was, the browser contained in a piece of hardware. I think the whole value there was having this lightweight device that if you were doing web tasks, you didn't need all of the artillery that came with a Windows machine. And so it was a web browsing device at that point. But then pretty quickly, we came out with this this mode of deployment called kiosk and managed guest session. So the whole thing about that was pretty special is it didn't require a user login, and the session would wipe itself automatically after each time after a person used that device and start clean again. So that sort of mode of user experience was really like a no frills way to deploy apps and content to a device in a very lightweight way. So we didn't necessarily know it at the time, but that mode of deployment became really popular in these retail kiosk digital sign use cases where IT admins could just deploy a single app, really lock that device down, and have the device wipe itself, clean up the data, and be ready for the next user. That happened, and then in parallel, Chromebooks were exploding in the classroom. Even to date, Chromebooks are the number one most popular choice for school districts in the US. If John, you mentioned your kindergartner, if anybody is a parent nowadays and the school's got devices deployed, it's likely going to be a Chrome device. And I will say the really cool part, how this is all interconnected, is the reason that Chromebooks in education are so popular is the same reason they're so popular in kiosk and digital signage. Different use cases, but really the same value proposition, right? You've got devices that are super easy to manage and control. So if you're one IT admin at a school district, you can deploy literally, if you needed to, thousands of Chromebooks in the school district. If you are a pro AV admin deploying digital signs, you could literally deploy thousands of signs across each of your retail stores. And I think that's really special because in the retail digital sign and kiosk world, I really see a lot of manufacturers thinking of management as an afterthought, whereas Chrome really leads with it instead. And so we care a lot about the user experience and the content on the screen, but we care equally as much about how easy is it to manage on the back end. And then I will also say minimizing downtime is a huge focus area for us. So the things that we do to really help retailers make sure that the content they're invested in, the user experience that they're invested in, can be realized. That ROI is so important when retailers are purchasing that technology, that we want to make sure that technology stays up and available as much as it can. And so, one example I always like to tell customers is of helping minimize that downtime is there's always 2 copies of our operating system on any given device. And so why do we have 2 copies? Because when version 1 is updating in the background and getting those latest updates from Google, version 2 stays available to that end user. And in that case, you never have to take a device down just to patch it or just to update it. And frankly, I think that that's the way that it should be.
I love it.
Awesome.
According to Google's own survey, 60% of organizations are already considering migrating to ChromeOS in the next 2 years. And the survey found that the top reason for migrating, security, number one.
Yeah.
Number 2, ease of management. And Brandy was just talking about that, right? Managing these devices on the edge, it's critical. And well played through a Chrome OS type of operating system, and the minimizing the downtime. Well, if Dave hadn't mentioned the blue screen of death and walking by that and digital signage, it's good that you don't see that anymore, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, failure,
Yep.
needs updating.
Yep.
You just don't see it anymore. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
And now I'm kind of
sorry to jump in, but there was one thing that Brandy mentioned I want to double down on as well, because it was a very important point about having too much ammunition, right, for the computer you're bringing to the table. Sorry if I kind of misphrase that a little bit, Brandy. But overall, the reality is a lot of devices that are used inside of stores and restaurants, they're purchased and used for their life for generally like one thing or maybe 2 things. They're not often purchased like a home PC where you could be doing games and word processing and et cetera, et cetera. When you buy a machine that's showing digital menus, or you're buying a machine that is lighting up a kiosk, it's really used for that for its entire life, and that's it. So because of that, you don't need to have this overly complex management system that can take care of 1,000 scenarios when you already know your 3 scenarios that you're dealing with. And that's why sometimes when we sit down with customers and we talk about what are you using it for, and then we help guide you towards what the best selection of OS is. That's exactly why. We want to guide them towards the best management experience and security experience based on what they need to do. And usually they're just over purchasing and overspending in environments where they don't need to. So by us bringing these new options to the table, we do help save money. We help serve more value. We help the devices last longer and just do a better job at the little list of things that they often need to do.
And if you're an IT manager, I think you've gotten into a different notion, right, about no frills. I'm going to use that phrase again, to Brandy. It's a no frills operating kind of thing. It's lightweight. And in the past where IT guys and gals would be like, oh, no, this thing can do everything. It can launch, rockets to the moon and stuff like that. Yeah, but really we don't need it to do all that. We just need this lightweight device, or entity on the edge that we can do things on.
Sometimes simpler is better. I mean, that's just,
especially in these applications, these use cases that we just mentioned.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think, David, you made a fantastic point there. The idea that it's sometimes there's just one use that you need it for, and you might know what that is. It could be just displaying today's specials. It could be showing a menu. It could be a simple kiosk for checkout, or for or if they're wayfinding, something like that. Why overcomplicate it if you don't have to?
Simple serving, those types of things. Yeah.
There you go.
Enabling the associates out on the floor. Yeah, right. Exactly.
And Brady, I really appreciate. I think that's a fantastic, cool idea there too. Of the idea of having kind of a double system where it's a fail safe for, hey, the background's getting updated, the foreground's still operating, and then you can swap out the two wherever you need to at some point. No interruption of service. That's
pretty cool.
As you mentioned it, I don't know why everybody isn't doing that, because that's a fantastic idea. That's the way it should be. I want to elaborate a little too. You guys, we had a webinar we did with you, maybe about a month or so back, about this partnership and about the ChromeOS solution and HP's engaged retail solutions. And I'll drop a link in our show notes to that, because I highly recommend checking it out to get a little more in depth, on the specs and the details in the background. But a couple of statistics that you guys put into that presentation that I really appreciated, and relating to this, 48% that ChromeOS creates a 48% lower operational costs, 34% lower cost of digital signage. And then switching over, and this kind of leads to our next question here. You mentioned the security and the ease of use, all that stuff. 0 reported ransomware attacks using ChromeOS.
What?
24% fewer security breaches, 26% fewer outages. So all that screams to me that security that everyone's talking about is inherent.
Absolutely.
Reliability is inherent in ChromeOS. So tell us a little more about that, Brandy. What does that mean to you, and what does it mean to the to the folks that are out there in the business every day that that want some reliability and security? What are they getting when they're using ChromeOS versus what they might get somewhere else?
Yeah, John, you called out my favorite statistic, which is 0 reported ransomware attacks on ChromeOS. That really is remarkable. Since 2011, I think we still have an active bounty program out there for folks who can find vulnerabilities in ChromeOS and report them to us. But that bounty program, we haven't had to spend much on it, because there's been just so few reported vulnerabilities out in the wild. I think it's really interesting, because when you look at an operating system today, you assume it's insecure out of the box. And then you've got to add these layers upon layers of security, whether it is, endpoint threat detection or a VPN. And so it's almost like you have this flawed product you're putting out there, and then all the IT admins are like, okay, how do we safeguard it so that we try to minimize the attack surface? Whereas ChromeOS kind of flips that on its head, and it's secure out of the box. It tries to be proactive about security. We really pioneered what's called the zero trust model, which is we assume everything is insecure, and you as a user have to prove to us that you're in a secure environment to access the data you need to access. And so we'll look at things on the device of, are you on a trusted internet network? Once you enter your password, sometimes we'll ask for 2-factor authentication and have you plug in a physical security key that's registered to your device. So it's proactive security that starts to layer on authentication to get to say, okay, we trust that you're a normal user and not, some sort of malignant actor that's trying to overtake the device. So I think that's really different. That's really unique. Same principle obviously applies to a device you're deploying for digital signs. Some of the cool other things, it really ties back to kind of that no frills experience. We don't allow executables to run on Chrome OS. Executables are traditionally a pretty big attack vector. So that's one of the ways that we really try to make sure that device is proactively secure. I could go on and on about sort of the different features that exist, but it's multi-layered. We're talking about what a modern OS means. It's really thinking about how security can be fulfilled at every layer of the operating system, from the hardware itself, from the firmware level, the OS level, and then even the browser level. With Chrome browser, we have active sort of threat warnings that will try to warn you. Maybe you've come across this as well, that will tell you, hey, we think that this site is insecure. We think you might, become a victim of a phishing attack if you click here. So there is also that user component of helping, users be as secure as they can in their kind of browsing experience. And then, we work so closely with our OEM partners, like HP, to make sure that, there's something called the Titan C security chip that gets embedded in every device. And that also adds a layer of security. So all the things I talked about, they're all there on every single device that runs Chrome OS. And we have never compromised on security, and we never will.
And Brandy, I used to be a VAR, right? Actually, myself, back in the days, had a company that sold technology right to stores and restaurants and serviced them. And what you're bringing up here, if we unpack that a little more, is a huge story for a VAR, because a lot of VARs, they have their operation. They have a couple of people that usually run the show, right? Depending how big or small the VAR is. And then they have employees that are there for sales, but also for support and management of the devices. And the more, they usually have some sort of formula, but the more devices that they sell and they're managing and helping customer support out there in the field, the more people they need over time to do that. But when you have something like Chrome, and like you mentioned here with the no reported ransomware, but also just the manageability, less security, fewer outages, that changes the labor formula for VARs, right? They can have more devices out there with fewer people that they need to support those customers. And if something does happen and the machine goes down, they need to restore it, it is that much easier and faster. So kind of going back to the original question of the podcast too, why is operating system such a big decision for VARs? It means that they can be more competitive or more profitable depending on how they want to take this, but they can deliver solutions to customers that run more reliably. They can still charge their service contracts, as a VAR should always do, but they can actually execute and deliver those services a lot more efficiently. So I think it
Yeah.
goes back to get to my history there. So
It's like the perspective, so cool, David, right? Like the VAR perspective is, it doesn't matter what technology you're presenting to the end customer. They want their content on the screen. They want that, self-service experience. I've had VARs tell me that it's with Chrome OS, they're saving, just think about, labor per hour, number of support tickets filed. So the VARs are really realizing that cost savings on a sort of resourcing and talent level. And they still get to deploy that same awesome content for their customers. And I would say, from the customer's perspective, like, you never want things like security and, do I have the right IT talent to deploy a digital initiative? Like, if you're a retailer that wants to give your customers a certain in-store experience, or help make your store associates more productive, the last thing that should be a barrier to that is having to think about how to manage those devices. So we really want to empower those retailers to say, with Chrome OS, we can provide that experience with the existing resources that we have.
It can be an uphill battle sometimes when you think about all these embedded IT, entities, there are staffs, that job security is the security of the network, right? I mean, like they build their whole lives and jobs around the job security.
Mess that up, you're in a lot of trouble.
Brandy, well, that she said, kind of layering on all these layers of security. It's just brilliant, right? When you think about it. Well, here's a product, but wait a minute, we need to now secure it with all this other stuff.
Right.
Oh my God, talk about job security. That's what I'm saying. You got an ID department. It's like, well, if it goes down, we're the people. So, but to David's point, I mean, it can make the reseller be that much more efficient and go after that much more business with the same resources, human resources that you might have in place. Interesting mind shift of your, mentally where you're at as it relates to that.
Yeah, and I appreciate Brandy's point also that, we have this expectation that OSs are kind of fractured and, inherently flawed out of the gate, out of the box.
It's like a ticking time bomb sitting in your computer, right?
How often have
it's just a matter of time before this thing.
Exactly.
Right.
How often, like you on like a phone or on your computer, like, oh, hey, there's a new OS available. You download it, and then just a week or two later, you're getting like, hey, you need to download this 0.1 emergency patch that fixes all these security flaws. Now, typically, I think that's usually someone whose job it is to go find security flaws, found something and let them know, and so they put out a patch.
Yeah.
Occasionally, it's because someone actually found something to exploit. But I think we do think inherently that, like, all right, new OS. I'm sure, I know people that'll say, I'm not going to download that new OS for my phone, computer, or whatever for a month because I'm going to wait until all
see what the rest of the world says
out.
about it. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Imagine being able to say, hey, you don't have to worry about that. There's not going to, there might be patches, but not because out of the gate there's going to be security issues that are going to have to be fixed down the road that we didn't bother thinking about ahead of time. So I think that's a nice, powerful message that a VAR could take out there, in addition to what we were talking about, the idea of, hey, you also have a heck of a lot less work you're going to have to do on the back end to make sure that this stuff stays secure because they're doing that work up front.
There you go. That's fair. Yep.
Well, David, I want you to wrap up our main conversation here by talking a little bit about HP's support for, obviously you're supporting ChromeOS and incorporating that with a lot of your hardware solutions at this point, but you support Android as well, which is still a very dominant, force in OS. But I imagine VARs might be a little confused about, hey, when should I be offering one versus the other? I mean, I know they were like that about Windows and Android, and now that Android's kind of taken dominance a little bit away from Windows, now we're looking at ChromeOS as well. So maybe help understand, what are some of the key differences between the two systems, at least from a VAR perspective of figuring out, what to offer and what to deploy in a certain situation.
Yeah, and that's it's definitely not always a one-size-fits-all answer to the question, right? Because sometimes there could be some overlap where, hey, both operating systems can probably meet the mark for certain use cases, but there are definitely areas where it's stronger. When I mentioned before that we sit down with our customers and we don't talk just about OS. By the way, sometimes they have already pre-selected in their minds what that OS should be, and we can have that conversation. But a lot of times it's consultative. We have a lot of customers that come to us and say, we're looking to really change our technology footprint on our next big rollout. And which direction should we go? What is HP seeing with all of your other customers? And those are questions we love because we talk to a lot of customers right there. And actually, since we last recorded, when we recorded that webinar recently, since then, we've just supported with Google another large multi-thousand kiosk device rollout powered by ChromeOS. Right, so we're definitely seeing the demand. We're seeing customers that are saying, this makes more sense for what we're talking about. Let's go that direction. But we do have a multi-OS strategy. We work very closely with Google for both operating systems, and we talk to a lot of people about their directions that they're going. And like I mentioned before, because most devices are being installed that serve one or two purposes, you really want to look very closely at what that purpose is and why you would use it. So when you look at Android, for example, I'd say Android is especially optimized a little better for smaller devices, right? It's not saying that Chrome can't run on smaller or that Android can't run on larger, because that's not totally true. But the optimization that's in place, because Android was really created for that mobile environment, and Chrome was really created more for that larger device environment, like Brandy was referencing earlier with schools and Chromebooks as a huge example right there. Android also has, I'd say, a bit of a more of a history right there as far as people developing apps for it, right? So Android has a really in-depth, robust app store with tons of software developers on the market right there that are familiar with the OS. They're familiar with the ecosystem. So sometimes for some companies, they haven't chosen their software yet, and Android opens up this huge number of apps that they can choose from. And that might be attractive to them, right? So that's a really good use for Android right there. And Android also has a pretty easy time being managed alongside other operating systems, right? So if you're in a transition where you're running Windows and Android and Chrome, there are MDMs, multi-device managers out there. I think I got the abbreviation not 100% correct there, but for the intent of the conversation, it's really powerful for them because if you're running some Windows devices, some Android devices, you can sometimes manage them easier under the same management tool. And also where it is in its life, and this is certainly evolving for Chrome, but Android does have a bit more support for peripherals as far as drivers and support for them. I'm not talking about peripherals for teleconferencing. I mean the ones that we see for a retail store, like receipt printers and all that. So there are certain areas where I'd say Android, hey, maybe a little bit of a choice, but then you look at Chrome, and Chrome is really a cloud-first operating system. And if you look at anybody that's writing new software nowadays, they're looking at this multi-OS architecture. They're looking at making software that really inherently has a cloud-first approach because that's where the future really is not just predicted to be, but already is here for many businesses. So that's a huge factor right there that it's made for that. It's made for lightweight simplicity. It has an exceptional security story. So when we talk about security for customers that have suffered a breach, and we mentioned this whole security story for Chrome, the conversation changes to how do I get software for it? It's not about which operating system to use. And like Brandy mentioned too, so management console and security are inherently part of the operating system. You don't need to add on top of that. The admin console for ChromeOS, it's got over 500 settings that you can control centrally. And those are for big fleets of devices. And in a big fleet of devices, they're not all the same, right? Some of them in a different region need to do one thing versus a different thing in a different region. The admin console makes it easy to not just manage a large number of devices, but manage them in groups, right? So you don't have to have them all do the same thing. And that's a really, really important part. The stability for Chrome really seems to be unmatched. Out of the thousands of devices we've had out there, literally not a single instance of somebody having the machines go down. I mean, it's just really running phenomenally well right now. And it's an awesome usage for signage and kiosks. Don't overburden yourself with more OS or more resources than you need. Choose what you need for that use case. Unless you think that hardware is going to change purpose 4 years from now, which usually very often it's not, it's a really good choice right there. So while I think it's fantastic that we offer both, there are definitely distinct benefits to each one that we do help guide customers towards making the right selection. And I did mention peripherals, but we're actually about to make some great progress on the peripheral front. I probably can't say too much right there, but we're going to be having kind of our first strike at a really retail-focused peripheral rolling into this formula that does take part of that gap and shrink it right there.
Nice.
You heard it here first on the TEConnect podcast.
There you go. A couple other
Breaking news.
Right, breaking news. A couple other statistics to kind of back up what David was talking about there. 2023 IDC report that Chrome is the fastest growing operating system in the world. With expected growth in the 20% range. However, as impressive as that is, Android is still the dominant of the two, apparently. According to StatCounter, Android had a global market share of 69.7, let's call it 70%, in September of 2023. And I think that gets to the use on mobile devices, right? And that's all phone usage and stuff like that running on an Android, while Chrome OS is more in the 2% range. So a lot of growth there, but I think David did a great job of kind of painting the opportunity, right? Of, Android's typically used in mobile environments, tablet or smaller device, phone and things of that nature. But clearly, and that's what I think the takeaway from me is that VARs and solution integrators have to know the difference between these operating systems and the use cases that people are utilizing it in so that you can come to the market with the best solution. I mean, what do you want your digital signage to do? Not go down. So what's the best operating system that's going to enable that, right? These are there you go. So you want to be the hero. And so, that's really good stuff there.
And it's nice to be the hero with some options,
right?
Where you can decide like, hey, let's talk a little bit. Let's have a discussion about what you're trying to do, what you want to accomplish.
But they're already thinking about it.
Yeah.
I got another statistic here. I think it was like, something like 70% of organizations are considering considering, migrating at least some of their devices over to an Android or a Chrome OS. So, I mean, it's like they're already thinking about it to a certain degree.
Right.
So, yeah.
So make yourself knowledgeable,
You better
understand
have
the
it.
differences and the choices.
You better have the solution.
Hopefully you were listening to what David just had to say.
Bingo.
There.
That's
if not, rewind this a little bit. Listen to that part again.
Right,
so.
right.
All right. Brandy, do you have anything else to add there as far as the Chrome versus Android?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'll just say, of course, Android and Chrome OS are part of Google, and I love our Android friends. Never would speak ill of them.
No,
Android,
of course not. Even though they're on the other side of the building. No worries.
Chrome's your baby. We understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm on an Android phone myself, and I love the experience. I think, to David's point, it's never going to be clear cut, and I think VARs and customers alike really have to start with, what are my priorities? Like, if I'm deploying this technology, what is it that I care about? As a consumer myself, I will say, we all, omni-channel has probably been a term that's been used to death in the retail world, but it's still very relevant. I might place an order on my Android phone for, my favorite clothing retailer, walk into the store, and maybe they've got a, self-service kiosk there where I can pick up my order, or let the store associate know that I'm here, and have that sort of check-in experience. And so that kind of experience in store might be better facilitated with, Chrome OS, large tablet form factor, especially with the HP Engage kiosk. That would be a more conducive experience on a larger screen. And so and then while I'm in the store, there might be digital signs kind of out and about letting me know about the latest promotions and specials. And I think it's really, if a retailer sits down and kind of maps out where they can interact with that customer, all the screens that are in store and also outside of the store, in that, in that consumer's pocket, they would see space for both operating systems and beyond. So it's really, the sophisticated retailers are really thinking about the right tool for the job.
Yeah. So Brandy's costume is a little more fun than mine, I'll say at the moment. But my costume, you can see, is I'm also an elected school board member, and so this isn't really related to retail, but I was part of my district when we went through that transition from very heavy operating systems on devices that were in the hands of thousands of kids, right, which love to try to break things and challenge things, and we moved them over to Chrome. And the ability to see how much less work is involved in managing thousands of devices in thousands of kids' hands is dramatic. So that was an example where we had to find the right operating system to meet what we needed to do. Before that, we were just running a lot more weight. We're dragging a lot more along than we needed to for what we were looking to accomplish. So it's been pretty transformational, and I think that's why so many schools have shifted over, because a lot of those tools for kids are now web based, and they can change very quickly. And it's just very. I agree with what Brandy said. So we'll leave it at that.
There you go. All right. Well, hey, we're going to wrap us up with some value to the VAR here in a moment, where they're going to tell you a little bit more about the HP and Google partnership and how it can help you win some business. Before we do that, as always, I want to thank our sponsors of the BlueStar TEConnect program, our podcast in particular. If you like the show, we need you to let us know. You like and subscribe wherever you're listening on an audio podcast platform. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel. Drop us a comment, give us a review, and let us know what you want to hear about on the show. We always need your input on ideas and topics of what to discuss. You can always find a link in the show notes to send that to us. You can also email us at any time, TEConnect@BlueStarInc.com. All right, let's wrap things up here. Let's start first with our value to the VAR.
Yes.
And like I said, I kind of want you guys to talk a little bit maybe more about, if you haven't picked up on it already, there's a great relationship going on between HP and Google here. So tell us more about that partnership and how you guys help VARs go out and find opportunities and, more importantly, sell new solutions around HP products and Google's Chrome or Android solutions as well.
Yeah, I mean, I will share just some of the programs that we've put out there to help our VARs effectively evaluate an HP Google solution. We understand that what's out there is broken, but it's still what they know best. And so sometimes trying a new technology might seem a little bit intimidating, but what we're all about is removing that barrier to try it, right? So some of the things that I'll put out there is, we're offering demo kits to our VARs all the time. You guys want to get hands-on with that technology, and so we want to make that available to you. So we're always, making hardware available to VARs to try out. Got a really smart team of people on both sides, our sales engineers, that if you have an opportunity, don't feel like you're going at it alone, because there's some really technically minded folks that can help you architect a solution, demo it to the customer. And that exists on both HP and Google sides. And then, we've got funding, we've got money, we're putting dollars out there for interested VARs that want to run ChromeOS projects. And so you can get dollars put towards any kind of services you offer to your customer to try to close a deal, whether that be, proof of concept or a pilot, even money towards deployment services. So we're all about trying to remove that barrier to adopting new technology.
Most VARs love that, Brandy. If there's
Yeah.
some kind of, like a proof of concept that they want to try to work with. In all seriousness, I mean, you look at the hardware manufacturers as being a part of that ecosystem, and the ability to enable those types of things. David?
Well, I think Brandy had him at we have dollars, right? So it has impact right there. It really does. But it's just been a fantastic partnership overall. And, from the HP perspective, I mean, we work with a lot of VARs. Most of what we sell is actually sold through the VAR channel all around the world. So for us, it's really about how do we empower VARs with, one, we got to have the right hardware, right? We spent a lot of time at HP trying to figure out what's the right mix of all-in-ones and mobile products and all that, so that we can, if a VAR walks into a store and understands an opportunity, the HP is really lined up for us to be able to support that opportunity with our products, but also with the operating systems that run on there, as well as our knowledge. So my job in particular, and also several of my colleagues, is really about kind of visiting around the world, visiting with customers and with VARs and spreading that knowledge and helping teach them, hey, we've really got a good vision of what we think is coming in the future inside of retail related to technology. And we're here to teach you about it and share that with you and kind of help you understand why we added offerings like Chrome to the mix, right? Why do we have Chrome OS? Why is it part of that? How can it benefit you? So I think that's really a powerful message for VARs, that they like vendors or partners, really partners that can come in and teach them and help them navigate those things, help them understand where the future is going and help them prepare for that. While we learn from them, I think we're pretty proud that they also learn from us. So, as far as the partnership that functions between HP and Google, it's really good. It's actually like excellent. And you often don't see that between two very large companies. A lot of times people there to kind of do their roles, but don't necessarily represent the relationship between the companies as one of the benefits of making those solutions out there. So in addition to knowing Brandy, I've gotten to know a lot of the people over at Google, and I've gotten to make sure that they also know a lot of the folks over at HP. And I've always had the philosophy in life, you need to, when you're doing business, it goes a lot better when you really genuinely like the people you work with and you put effort, not just into the product, but the relationship. We make sure we have social time together. We have fun. We get along. We get to know each other really well. And it builds this trust. Like, we have great products on both sides, but we know that if a customer has a tough question, Google's there to help us on the phone. If a customer has an issue and they call Google, Google knows that we're a phone call away, and there's this trusted relationship. And when you're dealing with a VAR, you don't want to leave any of those things up to them to figure out. You want to show them that we figured it out. We're going to make this really easy for you to innovate because we've done it together first, and now we're bringing it out to you to help make you more successful. So I think that partnership and the theme of how we run it is actually very unique, especially for large companies. And I really think that bringing this offering to the table, I'm going to kind of revisit what I said earlier. It's going to help make VARs more successful, right? They have more opportunity to put more terminals out there in the field with something innovative, where it's easier for them to deliver a solution. The solution runs better in the field. They can charge just as much as they were before in their service contract. It's just kind of a win-win because everybody's happy, including the end user that has solutions that aren't being blue screens, right? They're just working. So I'm really enthusiastic about it.
Yep. That's good stuff right
Yeah,
there.
that's what you like to hear.
Yep.
Definitely that excited relationship.
Yeah.
I'll just add on also that obviously I mentioned earlier the webinar you guys did with us a little while back. Highly recommend checking that out if you want even more understanding and detail about their relationship, how they came to to work together, the HP Engage solutions, how ChromeOS really fits in and works. Good stuff. I'll drop that link in the show notes. Do not hesitate to check out that webinar
Yeah.
because
If you don't know a lot about
more
it, it's a
depth.
great stepping stone,
Yeah.
right? A great first step.
Yeah, exactly. All right, now let's wrap up with our favorite segment, What's Tech Connecting with You? This is where we get to talk about something in the world of tech, innovation, science,
Yes.
some kind of discovery, whatever it is, something that's got our attention, caught our eye. David, I'll let you kick this one off. What's Tech Connecting with You right now?
I'm going to do one retail and then one non-retail. So I'll start with the retail one first because I feel like how do you have a podcast that has the word tech in it without mentioning artificial intelligence, right? And it is one of those technologies that is certainly mind blowing, and it's one of the things I get to. I'm fortunate I get to speak about in front of audiences, and also we recently hosted our own customer advisory council. We had about just over a dozen really high powered, very big brands that you would definitely recognize that I can't always talk about publicly. We brought them together and we talked through some really challenging artificial intelligence topics. I wasn't there to talk about just using BAR to create content, which, by the way, has huge benefits for retailers, no question about it. But we said, hey, let's put chatbots aside and talk about how technologies that make up AI, one of them being machine learning, which for the casual observer is kind of the ability for a computer to use data that it's getting from various sources inside of the store and provide operational recommendations out, right? So, it has this data, it sees what's happening in the kitchen and it says, hey, you're taking a very inefficient path or you're mixing together food, or maybe you haven't cooked this food to the right temperature. It can ingest this data and give real-time recommendations and actually learn from a kitchen. The potential is huge. And the other side is the whole generative AI. Try saying that one 10 times fast, by the way. That's the ability for technology to create content, right? And to use, again, this whole data set, but the ability for it to create content and interact almost in a human way. So we talked through a lot of various different use cases. For example, what one fast food chain is doing to have AI take over for voice for a human voice when actually taking orders at the drive-thru. It's mind blowing. So it was really cool to really hear about them breaking the mold of what's available today, putting aside the concerns for security and what's called hallucinations or AI essentially making up stuff that might not make sense or might not trend well, and say, let's assume we solve those problems. Where do you see this stuff being used? And the stuff that came out of that conversation was cool. And it was really awesome to see that a lot of them aren't using it to replace humans. A lot of them are using it to make everything operate better and more efficiently and more cost effectively so they can have humans dealing with humans. And, really huge right there. So that was number one. Number two, I'm going to I'll go back to the Halloween theme over here. So I recently got my first electric vehicle. And by the way, I'm not the kind of person that tells you, you have to drive an EV or you have to drive gas. Like that's, to me, my business is what I choose and so on. But I picked up a Rivian. I don't know if you've heard of that brand. They're built in Illinois. And so for me, I've been reading all things EV, trying to understand all the different aspects, the charging, how they run, et cetera, et cetera. But one fun thing, and this is kind of a reminder to anybody making a consumer or a business product, make it a little bit of fun. So my last update, which by the way, with the kind of the newer model of cars, the updates get installed when they're sitting in your driveway, or you don't have to go and bring them to a dealership to get serviced. They added Halloween mode. So it actually plays Halloween songs when you approach or leave the car. When you open the door, it has pumpkins pouring out of the door on the visual display, and it's lit up with all different colors inside, all for Halloween. So a lot of fun. It's kind of a reminder, I already love this brand, but now I get in and I'm like, wow, this is a lot of fun. My kids love getting in the car now, which is always a bonus at this age or teenagers. My wife, she wants me to drive, but she loves Halloween, so she finds it to be a lot of fun. So as far as technology goes, I think watch the car industry for how technology is really having a transformative effect upon how people buy and use cars.
No doubt.
Yep, the
Dean,
humanizing.
Is your EV doing Halloween themes for you?
I mean, it can do a light show, but it doesn't have a Halloween theme that I'm aware of there.
Man.
No,
If
but
you don't have a Halloween theme, you really don't have an EV.
dude, bro, ow, that hurt.
You got to go trade it in,
This
man.
EV shaming me right now. It's like whoa. It's so funny though that it's really cool stuff. And the updates happen.
That
just
is.
over there, wherever you are.
That's awesome.
That's
I
kind
love
of
that
cool.
stuff.
Yeah, good stuff.
That's all the more reason I'm heading that direction myself in the future.
Oh well, all cars. Yeah.
When there's pedestrians that usually see as people on your screen, to have some awareness, they actually show as zombies now.
That is. I don't know if that's a good idea though, because I mean, you watch a zombie apocalypse show, you're not supposed to run them down.
Well, you're turning into a first person, right? One of those games where you just go around and destroy everything, right?
That could backfire.
Edit it out of the conversation before you go.
Oh, that's awesome. All right, Brady, what's that connecting with you?
Well, I'll stick to the theme of cars. I, a while ago, took my first ride in a self-driving vehicle. So I live in San Francisco, and now the unmanned cars have taken over the city. So it's not uncommon to see them driving around without a driver in the seat. And, people have all sorts of funny terms for them, keeping in line with the theme of Halloween. People will call them ghost cars, but it was really trippy. The first time I got in, there was no one to acknowledge. The steering wheel just started turning on its own. It was a little freaky. But, after I got over that, I had this thought of I'm living in the future. Like, I could see by the time, a few decades later, maybe it's this scenario where it just becomes, you don't give a second thought to climbing into a car without a driver at the helm. And I just had that really crazy cool experience of taking a ride without a person, really thinking like this is like the next shift, revolution, if you want to call it that, of transportation.
Yeah, isn't that awesome? So it's like getting in an elevator back in the turn of the last century. People didn't get in it. It's like, what do you mean I'm going to get in a box?
What do you mean this box is going to take me up to the top floor?
No,
Yeah.
I'm not getting in an elevator. Are you kidding me? Well, so thank you for being the whatever.
A guinea pig?
Yes, the guinea pig. And getting in the car. Now, we have joked about it that there's some issues with them kind of clogging up the streets out there in San Francisco, right? So, yeah, okay.
We've seen that.
You've seen it. Yeah. Hey, those are bugs. They'll get worked out.
Yeah.
Eventually.
But we need folks like Brandy out there trying them out so we can get to the the smooth version that all of us get to partake in.
Yes.
If it hits a zombie, it was only a zombie.
See?
Yeah, exactly. As long as you don't look up from the screen, it's just a zombie. Yeah.
Oh, good
Exactly.
stuff.
There you go.
Good stuff.
All right, Dean, what's TEConnecting with you?
All right, so in the season of Halloween, I thought I would go with the fear factor type of thing. So there's an entity out there, Chapman University survey of American fears. Do you want to take a guess at number one? Like, what do you fear? Is it ghosts and goblins or
guy.
rejection?
Spiders freak me out.
Getting sick. David, Brandy, you got anything? What are you fearful of? You got what's your top number one? Spiders. Yeah. Okay, neither one of you are on the list. David,
really?
What do you got? Yep.
I probably have like I like hiking, and sometimes you get pretty high up in mountains, and I still have this, I would call it a healthy fear of heights.
There you go. Okay. All right. Yeah. You're not even on the list. Yeah. So, okay. So the Chapman University survey of American fear is to collect annual data on the fears, worries, and concerns of Americans and how those fears are associated with their other attitudes and behaviors. So,
okay, this sounds like a little bigger than just like
it is a little bit bigger.
Bug.
That's why you'll never
you.
guess number one. Number one fear, and it has been this way for the last 7 years, is corrupt government officials. That is the number one fear of Americans right now. Corrupt government officials.
I mean, that's no fun, but I don't know that it's something that keeps me awake at night.
Top of the list. And then I'll just rattle off some of the other ones that are up there. Number 2, economic financial collapse.
Okay.
Number 3, rising Russia Russia using nuclear weapons. That's back in the top 10. I thought we had gotten rid of that one for a little while.
Well, you know, it's
that
the 80s all over again, isn't it?
Then you throw in the normal, becoming seriously ill, people I love dying, polluted drinking water, cyber terrorism, those types of things. I mean, there's your top 10. Now I'll go to the bottom 10, like what barely gets on the needle anymore. Strangers. People aren't fearful of strangers that much anymore. And 2, needles. Are you fearful of needles?
No.
All right, well, that's in the bottom there. Catching the flu. No longer a big fear.
Okay, I can understand that.
Ghosts. Ghosts is 4 from the bottom.
Okay.
Blood. And then the last thing that people really don't fear, animals. Man. Dogs, rats, whatever. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
There you go. So,
man, we're taking a much bigger worldview about our fears than we used to, weren't we? Good grief.
Corrupt government officials. That's number 1. I'm going to call BS on this because I don't know that I sit around worrying daily about corrupt government officials.
Like to
I just assume they're all corrupt.
Yeah, I would like to have some demographic context of the people they surveyed for this because I feel like there's there's
1,000 people.
Certain demographic maybe that
you
might
think
be
so?
at play here. I don't know.
Well, adults 18 years and older, 1,000 people, whatever. So there you go. There's your fear survey for today.
Maybe it's that, like we always say, like it's the 1,000 people that were willing to pick up a phone and answer survey. They're special people anyway, right? Let's be honest.
There it is.
And they're all the spiders out of their house. There's only corrupt government officials left.
Well, clearly they're living in like a hermetically sealed steel bunker underground, I guess, to avoid the nuclear strikes and the corrupt government officials. So I guess they don't have to worry about spiders at that point.
Not at all. So what's a TEConnecting?
All right. I didn't do the Halloween theme. I apologize for that. But
dropped the ball,
maybe in a way that we're talking about some archaic technology. I don't know. Yeah. So September.
What did blue screens fall on that list? Just to be clear.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah,
that's fair, David. That's
blue screen of death.
Yes.
I hope that's not high on the list anymore.
No, didn't make it.
If so, they should be switching to ChromeOS.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so September 29th saw the end of an era. Netflix sent out their last DVDs.
I saw that in the news. Yes.
So, mind you, Netflix started back in 1998. They've mailed, as of 2019, when they last tracked this, they had mailed over 5 billion discs.
Wow.
And apparently Redbox wanted to buy out their DVD business, but Netflix was a no-go on that.
Oh, really?
They decided to sunset
recently?
it instead. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
So they mailed out their last one September 29th. Folks that got them had until October 27th to mail them back. However, apparently some subscribers that were like special subscribers, which if you're still doing DVD by mail, you should be considered as that at this point.
Yeah.
We're allowed to keep the last disc that they
I was about to say, don't they just say just keep it?
Yeah. Why do you care if they send it back at that point?
Yeah.
So, but I admit this is not, I'm going to say brought a tear to my eye because I have not done the DVD by mail service in probably a decade or more.
Yes.
But I was a very early adopter on this. I remember I started doing it in 99, 2000, I think, something like that. Yep. I had a boss where I worked at the bookstore that I worked in at the time. He was a big cinephile, even more so than I am.
Oh.
And was like, hey, you should get a DVD player. I'm like, okay, I got that.
Yeah, right.
Like, I'm going to start loading you DVDs and you need to sign up for this service called Netflix. Okay, never heard of it, but sure, I'll give it a whirl.
The blockbuster killer.
And I think what was always cool about Netflix, though, was that they had such a deep pool of DVDs to choose from.
Titles.
I mean, stuff that you would never find in a Blockbuster or any other local video shop, like really deep stuff. And in the days also before streaming era now, where we are, where you can binge watch your favorite television show ad nauseum. Back then, when you weren't binging it, you weren't able to do that if you weren't watching live on television. Netflix would send you like a disc from a TV series. So you could get like a single disc from a series, like watch like 4 episodes, send it back, get the next disc, stuff like that.
I gotcha.
I love that stuff. I was a big fan of it for a very long time. Yeah. And, it went the way of the dodo, but
we binge watched 24.
There you go.
Nice.
Yeah, 24. Yep. I remember doing it with
on DVD,
Star
David?
Trek, I think. Yeah.
On DVD.
Nice.
There you go. All right. So hey, there you go. That's what's TEConnecting.
Fair enough.
Our sort of spooky Halloween edition.
That's
for the podcast.
Yep.
Big thank you to David Gosman, Brandy. I appreciate having you guys on the show today. It is time for us to unplug. But until next time, dust off your old DVD player.
Really?
Find that 2-disc edition of Titanic that you haven't watched in 20 years.
Okay. See if it'll work on your TV.
See if it actually works on your modern television at this point. And as always, folks, please stay connected. TEConnect Podcast is brought to you by Zebra. Dean, some companies, they use consumer smartphones for their enterprise because they base it on a perceived value. But for a true competitive edge and the necessary features, they need a smarter choice.
You got that right.
Still meets their budgets.
Yes, sir.
All right, meet the Equalizer. It's not the Denzel Washington films or the that's the Equalizer?
Yeah.
Or the old TV series.
Yeah.
Or the newer TV series with Queen Latifah.
Good Lord.
We're not talking about any of those
None
equalizers.
of that. No, yeah.
We're talking about Zebra's TC22 and 27 mobile computers, providing all of the latest features customers need to level the playing field and make it easier to compete with any size business.
Boom.
From retail, hospitality, and the warehouse to field service and entertainment, this durable device has it all. The next-gen processor, 5G, Wi-Fi 6E, CBRS, and private 5G networks, a large 6-inch display you can see indoors and outside.
Got to be able to see it.
Fast, first-time, every-time capture of barcodes in any condition with an integrated scanner.
Nice.
I'm not done yet.
Yeah.
Support for tap-to-pay and non-payment contactless transactions.
Oh, that's important, yes.
Battery power for the longest shifts.
Yep.
Accessories that make every job easier. Plus, proven solutions that add new capabilities allowing users to do more.
Dude, bro, all that in this thing?
All that.
That's incredible.
And just handy little devices.
Yeah.
Give your customers the boost they need to compete with any size business with the TC22 and 27, the smartphone-style workers want and the features their business needs, all at an affordable price. Check out the link in the show notes to learn more and find helpful sales resources. TEConnect Podcast is also brought to you by Elo. Self-service has never been easier. Introducing Elo's Wallaby Pro kiosk stand. The Wallaby Pro is changing the industry by making it easier than ever to configure interactive self-service solutions. Choose from wall, counter, and floor models engineered with configurations to fit any space in retail, restaurants, hospitality, healthcare, and corporate environments. Just add a 22, 24, or 27-inch touchscreen display. All right, we just talked about options with Zebra. Let's talk about options here with the Zelo devices too. How about a custom branded backer board?
Nice.
Ceiling pole to minimize footprint.
Ooh, even better.
Pretty handy.
Yep.
And a printer.
Yes, of
You
course.
have an ADA keyboard.
Yes.
An assist button.
Yes.
You can use Elo's Edge Connect to attach accessories.
Ooh, there you go.
Peripherals, obviously,
Nice
as
and
well.
easy integration. Yes.
There you go. Oh, and the Wallaby Pro stand offers easy-to-access concealed housing for a power strip, power bricks, compute devices, cables, whatever.
You got to make it look good.
That's right.
And it does.
They look nice and clean and
Yes.
cool in your cool retail environment.
Got that right.
Ready to help your customers design the most customizable self-service solutions? Start with the Wallaby Pro. Contact your Elo representative to learn more.